We're going to jump into Big Ten. I know we're up against it. We'll have a couple segments to get through Big Ten. We went through the first 6 teams, my top 6 teams in the Big Ten on Monday and Tuesday, 3 each day. We got to go through 4 today so we can get through all 14 before Friday. Any guesses? Who's next? Off the top of your head, you already did a graphic. Can you think of it?
I don't know. Maybe Minnesota.
There you go.
Minnesota.
Throw it up there. You got anything against Minnesota? Any Middleton hate?
No, I've been to Minnesota once. It's a cold city.
You lived there once?
I vacationed there. I vacationed
okay.
to Minnesota.
So Minnesota is my 7th top-rated team in the Big Ten. They come in at 34 for me, which is a little higher than, I know I've been giving people context. Phil Steele has them 49th. PFF has them 38th. They return 89% of their production combined, offensive defense, from last year. Now, generally, that's a massive number. Again, I say this every day as a reminder. NCAA granted an extra year of eligibility. So the average, instead of 63% nationwide, is 77% this year. So they're 18th in returning production or experience this year. Still a team that, look, Tanner Morgan in 2019 had a massive year quarterback, and then last year it was just a weird. I think they ended up their first couple of games, having a bunch of COVID issues and playing with like scout team players, and the offensive line had a bunch of injuries. And so Tanner Morgan had a huge drop off where people thought he would have a good year after 2019 in 2020 and actually declare for the NFL draft. He didn't, so he didn't declare for the NFL draft, and now he's back. So I think they're probably somewhere in between the 2019, 2020 Tanner Morgan Minnesota Gophers squad. My personal projection for wins is 6.9, so I think 7 is fair. But they aren't a team, if you're like looking at what happened last year, and defensively, I think they graded out like 116th in EPA. Look, they were 22nd in offense, and that was with a Tanner Morgan that wasn't as accurate and had problems with his offensive line, but they ran the ball effectively, even in a tough Big Ten schedule. So yeah, I think that's fair, but I wish if it was 6.5, I probably would be considering over. If you can find 6.5s in Minnesota in the market in the win total, I think it's a worthwhile play. But at 7, it is a pass. Next up for me is Nebraska. I have them at 37th. And so it'll be interesting. You're like, wow, they're only a couple spots behind Minnesota. But in the market, you see there the season win total. It's a full win total lower. Nebraska projects to have the second most difficult schedule in the entire country. And so that is why, despite being a similarly rated or graded team as Minnesota, their win total is lower. And I have them only projected for 5.8 wins. So I love Scott Frost. Love Adrian Martinez. They just haven't quite reached or hit that point that everyone anticipated when he came over from UCF. Last year, they were 42nd in EPA on offense, 66th in defense. So, I mean, they're above average on both sides. But when you play in the Big Ten and you have, I guess, the second toughest schedule projected in the entire country, it's just going to be tough to win enough games. And I'll pull up their schedule because they play, I believe it is Oklahoma. Yes, it's Oklahoma. So outside of having to play Ohio State and Wisconsin and Iowa, Northwestern, Michigan State, like they have to play Oklahoma too. So it's just going to be tough for them, I think, to get to 7 wins. And I think 6 is fairly close. Again, if you could get a 6.5 in the market, again, I've seen a few at like a minus 140 range there. I think that's a worthwhile under, but at 6 it would pass. Northwestern, I do like, I will say now. They're my 47th rated team in the country, which is interesting for a team that's 10-2 last year. And, was actually making a potential shot at getting into the Big Ten championship game. They are the second least experienced team in the country. Their total returning production is 39%. BYU is the only school that has less coming back. And I think that's why the market's only at 6.5. But I have to trust, for one, Pat Fitzgerald just like finds ways to win games no matter what, especially if they're close down the stretch. They're defensively, they were, I think, second best against the pass in EPA in the entire country. As a whole, they were still 11th in EPA, so right, including against the run. They were fantastic. Their secondary lost one main guy to the NFL. I forget his name. It was a first-round draft pick. And then they bring the other 3 back. So I think they can rely on the defense and the secondary to some degree, but they lose transfer Peyton Ramsey, who had gone over from Indiana. And they're going to rely on either Ryan Helinski or Hunter Johnson. And neither of those guys in few starts that they've had the last few years for other schools. I believe Hunter Johnson was actually like a 5-star recruit to Clemson at one point a few years back. Helinski's played a little bit. if one of them can step up to some degree, I think the upside for Northwestern can be similar to last year. The market disagrees, and I think in general at this point in the summer, the market is just looking at who returns a lot or not, and this has gotten bet down. Look, I think that they're like a 7.1 win team on average. That's where my projection is. I think you can get over 6.5. And I will say this, of all the Big Ten schools in the entire country in the conference, they have the easiest schedule. I use air quotes off graphic on camera because, the Big Ten's extremely tough. 69th is still slightly, actually it's slightly below average. There you go. So 65 or so would be average. So slightly below average schedule, but relative to the Big Ten, it's one of the easiest. So can they get to 7 wins when they have like Indiana State on their schedule, Ohio, Rutgers, Illinois? They're still going to be favorites, most likely in their home matches against like Purdue or a Michigan State. So I have to go with Northwestern. I have to trust Fitzgerald, even though they are so inexperienced. I think just from a recruiting standpoint, a program standpoint, my priors, I think I'm more like a 7-win team, and we're getting a 6.5. So I got to go over with Northwestern. And last but not least, before we take a break and I break down Purdue, a little teaser, because we do have to take a break, and I'll hit them on the other side. But they are my, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th rated team in the Big Ten, coming in at number 52. And I will say quite a bit higher than Phil Steele at 59. And PFF has them at 80th. I have them at 52nd. So am I high? Am I bullish on Purdue? We'll find out on the other side. We're taking a break. This is Last Word Cheetah, 661-515 bets. If you guys want to get any more in before the end of the show at the end of the hour, we'll be back soon. Welcome back, everybody. We were just going through my Big Ten preview for the day, my 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th rated teams in the conference. Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, broke those down. I do like Northwestern despite the lack of returning production and experience. Maybe it comes back to buy. Maybe, look, my numbers say this should be a season win total more like 7. You're getting a 6.5. I got to go with it. And then Purdue coming in at number 10 for me within the conference, 52nd rated team in the entire country. The 4th toughest schedule in the country. So again, Northwestern, the easiest Big Ten schedule, or the weakest, I should say, at 69th. Purdue 4th. So Nebraska and Purdue. Ultimately, for me, this comes down to, can you win half of your games when you're playing a schedule that includes, let me pull it up real quick, Notre Dame, out of conference, even Oregon State to open the year was a good team down the stretch last year in the Pac-12 that's up and up. And then you have to still play Ohio State and Wisconsin and Iowa and Nebraska and Michigan State. Like, it grades out to be the 4th, expected to be the 4th toughest schedule. So their win total's at 5. I project 4.6. I was going through, they're probably a good amount of the time going to be 3-1 too. They play Oregon State, so say they're going to be a favorite in that game. They play it at home, but it's losable, but I expect them to win more often. They'll beat UConn, and they should beat Illinois. But then they go on the road to Minnesota. Then they go Iowa, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Sparty, Ohio State, Northwestern, Indiana. I only project them out of those last 8 games to be a favorite in one of them. And so for them to be 3-1 and win 3 of those next 8 when they're only a favorite in 1, I have to go under the 5. I think it's going to push pretty frequently, but I have 4 fewer wins more often than 6 or more. So I like Purdue under the 5. They also have not only defensively are they going to struggle, they lose Rondell Moore. I know they played some games without Rondell Moore anyway because he was dealing with injuries here and there. But they've been playing 2 quarterbacks pretty frequently for the last 2 seasons, Jack Plummer and Aiden O'Connell. Does it? I know. When was the last time? I know they're really quick to it's not working for 2 or 3 series. Go to Plummer or go to O'Connell. They still have both of those guys are both still there. I'm not sure if they're just going to rely on one and set it in, or if one kind of sets themselves apart. The offense is graded out pretty well as a whole. I believe in EPA they were 35th. Yeah, 35th defensively. They're about middle of the pack. So as a whole, I think it might be a team that's worth considering betting overs in their games early on relative to the market. I think the offense will, despite the loss of Moore, be similar vein, similar path where they've been the last few seasons regardless. But defensively, it's just rough. And by the way, they bring back only 74% production, which again, it's pretty far below average in the country this year. So I got to go with it. Going under on Purdue, over on Northwestern. Those are 2 bets of the 4 today.